Hello and welcome. My name is Randy Forsman, and I am the president of the San Francisco, Northern California chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, otherwise known as NATAS. Today I'm excited to introduce you the first in a series of programs our chapter is producing, known as Cinema Club Vérité, Conversations with Filmmakers. You may be familiar with the Cinema Club program that our chapter runs, which offers exclusive access to film screenings for our members. Today's conversation is an extension of that, offering you a first-hand account of the making of the film I Was a Simple Man. I would like to thank our Activities Programs Chair Steve Slisky and Cinema Club Chair Gerard Elmore for organizing today's program. I'm as excited to watch this as you are. And with that, Gerard, I will toss it over to you.
Thanks, Randy. It is our pleasure to start this very first show of Cinema Vérité. Today, we're featuring filmmakers from behind the scenes of the feature film I Was a Simple Man. Today's guest is Christopher Makoto Yogi, writer, editor, and director of August at Aikidos, as well as I Was a Simple Man on many top 10 critics list. It debuted at the 2021 Sundance Film Festival, and the film was named the fourth best film of 2021 in a New Yorker magazine, where film critic Richard Brody called it one of the great films about death. I know that sounds a little morbid, but it's a really beautiful film. And we are so honored to have you as our first guest. And we also have actor Kyle Kosaki, who, for many watching, was also a member in the chapter and won a few Emmys. So we're honored to have Kyle join us to talk about his experience on set. With that being said, let's roll the trailer and then let's get into it.
So, you were sick. Just let it come. It is a part of you now. Do you have anyone that can come and help care for you?
I don't want to be here.
Why? What's wrong?
It's like hearing voices or something.
Dying isn't simple, is it? All these memories coming back. How am I supposed to care for him when he didn't care for us?
What are you gonna do, man, now that Grace is not here?
I'm gonna drink until I'm very old.
I had a dream about you. You were dying and you were afraid.
Well, at least we get to be together. Everything is in the wrong place.
Time moves differently out here.
This is not the end.
I forgot to unmute myself. Sorry, apologies. We're still figuring this out. What I said is that was a very powerful trailer. It's a very powerful film. You know, it really moved me. And as Chris knows, I put this top 10 list of best movies of the year. Even if I didn't know Chris, it would be on my top 10 list. It's my kind of film that's more meditative, reflective, and tackles big themes. So it's an honor to have you on the show, not only as a friend, but as a very talented filmmaker who is on the top of your game. And I feel like you've established a look and a style that when people watch the film, they know it's you and it's your voice, you know? And honored to have Kyle here as well to kind of jump in. Thanks, Chris. And, you know, again, thanks for joining us. Welcome, Kyle. Welcome to the show. And let's just dive into it. Sorry, I know I'm like cutting off. I'm still getting used to it. So I am eager, just like you guys are, to kind of just talk about this journey. It's an amazing journey. and it took a long time, right? So, Chris, can we talk about that journey and where did it all start?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like you said, it is a long story and a long journey. And first of all, thank you for putting this together, Gerard, and that is for having us. It's really cool to be able to talk about the movie. The origin of the film is years and years ago when I was a budding filmmaker, and I had an experience in my life where I just experienced a lot of death in my family. And I was younger and it was a very disorienting time, and I really didn't have the tools to really process it or to really even understand what was going on. But the one thing that, for whatever reason, for many years afterwards, kind of stayed with me was this feeling of being in the room with someone who's passing away, someone who's on the verge of dying. In the case of one of my grandfathers, it was this sort of weird sort of thing where he was talking to people who weren't there, and he was like yelling out these phrases in Japanese that I couldn't understand, and he was talking to me as if I was my father, but my father had just passed away. And so it was very like almost, for me at the time, very terrifying experience, to be honest. But with some space, I also found it to be quite beautiful, and I just wanted to just capture that feeling on film. Film is, I mean, it's an art form that I love, and it's just so good at communicating emotion. And so really just trying to capture that feeling was the initial sort of genesis of the movie.
And then can we sort of talk about your Sundance journey?
Yeah.
Yeah, the film was selected for the 2021 Sundance Film Festival, but the journey with Sundance started sooner, and that began in the lab. And if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I after sort of thinking like, okay, I want to make a film about this experience that I've had, and I just had it like a couple times in this very short period of time, just experience of being in the presence of death. Um, I wanted to make something, so I made a short first. I made a short film called Obake that really was just my attempt to sort of find that, communicate that feeling that I was talking about. But for whatever reason, the idea just stayed with me. Like I thought I was done with it, but the characters just stayed with me. The emotions just stayed with me, and so I think about 2014, I reached a point where I was like, you know what, I'm going to just see what this looks like as a feature. I had no idea if it would work as a feature, and so I sat down. I was living in New York at the time. I had some time off from work. I remember I would catch the subway every day to the Central Library, sit in that big room, and just like write all day, eat lunch in Bryant Park, write all afternoon, and then it just kind of poured out of me, this like just every day just going, and it just kind of just, for whatever reason, I think I'd been holding it in for so long that it just kind of came out very easily. And it was a mess. It was like a like that first draft was like a total mess. It was like emotional vomit or whatever. But the crazy thing is that that first rough draft was then invited to go to the Sundance Lab, and that was something that I'd been dreaming of for years. I'd applied before with other scripts and never gotten invited, but they saw, I think, a seed of something in this film, and so they invited me to the Sundance Lab in 2015, which then really began the journey in earnest. That's when it really like was introduced to the world as a project to look out for, or a project that's going to get rolling. And they were really a supporter throughout the entire like life of the film, really, and still are. And I'm very, very grateful and very lucky.
The next question kind of rolls into that, which is,
Yeah.
Why was the lab so important, and how did it help you get to the next point? Like, how did it help you get the film made?
One of the things that the lab provided was not only feedback from these awesome advisors who are much more experienced than I was, and who had experience in the industry, but also creative experience writing scripts, directing films. But it also just provided a space in which you can just try stuff, like you can experiment, you can play with your script. I also went to this program called the Director's Lab, in which you actually shoot films, and you're actually like shooting scenes from your script in an effort to sort of see if it works, like see what's wrong with it. It's like an experiment, like this, like it really is like a lab. You're doing these experiments and just seeing what's working, what's not. And just having that space, to just try stuff, and no one's watching this stuff, like no stakes, no pressure, just have fun, try stuff, fail, like all that stuff is really important, I think, for filmmakers to experience in the journey toward making something. And so they provided that space, and then on top of that, just having the Sundance sort of brand, or that sort of like stamp of approval, then open doors as well. People were willing to take a meeting or read the script, I think, that otherwise wouldn't have, that otherwise would have just been like, I don't know who this guy is. So having that sort of support really opened doors.
Awesome. And the lab is also where you met Constance Wu. And
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how she got involved? Like how did that happen?
Yeah, she was the first actor that we cast in the film, actually, because way back in 2015, when I did the lab, we cast her in our scenes. Like, it was one of those things where like they set you, it's so crazy. They set you up with like a casting director. You work with your casting director, you cast all of your scenes. She was cast in the role of Grace, which is a role based on my grandma Grace, who I never knew, who, like in the film, Grace dies early, and in my life, she died before I was born. So I never knew her. And she was kind of just an idea, at that point, because I didn't really know her. So after a while, I think she came in and she just brought so much of her talent and her ideas of who this character is. And it just working with her was like, all of a sudden, it's like the character just like made sense all of a sudden. And I just was so not only like blown away with her craft and her commitment, and she came prepared, but I also just got along with her. Like, I just really liked her as a person, and we became friends. And so I just asked her, like, when we make this film, do you want to do it? And she was like, yes, I would love to do this film. It took us like, then from there, like another, I think, like 5 years to get it made. But credit to her, like when we were ready, I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. Do you still want to do it? And she was like, yes. Like, if you can shoot within these like 2 weeks that I have free between my films, like I will come to Hawaii and I will do this. And then we made it happen during that time period where she could do it. And I loved working with her.
Yeah, and it's a powerful role as well, because there's not a lot of dialogue, with her role.
Yeah.
So just her presence is pretty strong,
Yeah.
And so,
and her like, and when I think of Constance, like up until that point, I think of is her voice. Like, she has such a strong voice, both in her opinions, but also just when she performs. Like, you always think of Constance's voice for some reason. And so like my sort of picture is like let's make a film where it's like you're acting from a completely different place than what you than what you've done before. And she's such an artist and a risk taker that she's like, of course, like I would, like, let's do this. And I remember her telling me, like, this is like one of the first roles in which she said this is the first role in which I'm playing a tree. I guess like she's playing like a piece of nature, and has to like embody that in like this very still and very powerful way. And it's a quiet performance, but yet when you're watching the film, every other performance kind of revolves around her, and she kind of like holds down the center in this way that's really, really important, I think, to the film and what makes the film work.
awesome. And it's a big, long journey. Making films is just hard, as we could all attest to, and a feature
Really
film.
hard.
And this has been a passion project of yours. You made August at Aikido's before that.
Mhm.
But then the film gets into Sundance, and COVID forces the festivals to go virtual.
Mhm.
Can you kind of talk about the emotions of that? And
Mhm.
we're still in it. Sundance
Mhm.
got shut down this year. So
Mhm.
as a filmmaker, and this is what we do, and to have it on the big screen, and then COVID kind of shuts it down. I mean, what's the emotions behind that whole thing?
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. I mean, even in the finishing of the film, we were in post in 2020, so we had to shut down the film in post, and then it was hard to get everything done virtually. Like finishing editing virtually, sound mix virtually, all of these things, just color virtually, which is really hard. But for us, we had a little bit of a different experience, actually, because when they called me to invite me to the festival, they said, looks like it's going to be virtual. So they kind of already had put those plans in place, because this was pre-vax. This was like kind of still in the middle of it. I really feel for the filmmakers this year in which, you guys are like planning to go and then it kind of gets switched on you. For us, we kind of knew going in that was going to be the situation. And so we were mentally and emotionally prepared in a way, I guess. And for me, to be honest, it worked out because I had my first kid 2 weeks before Sundance. And I don't know if I would have gone, but I probably could have only gone for like a really little bit of time. And so it was kind of a crazy thing to be able to attend Sundance, but also be at home with the newborn and, do all the parental duties that were required of me. And so it worked out. I will say though that it's different and it's hard. It's not the same as watching the movie in the theater with your friends, like being able to be there with Kyle and like watching the film together. Like that would have been the dream, of course. And that would have been so, I feel like, emotional and beautiful, and not having that is a real bummer. And it was, but it is the new normal in a lot of ways with a lot of these festivals. And so we're just all trying to figure it out, I guess.
Yeah, I can attest. I feel like the same way. When you go to a film festival, part of the magic of a film festival is being there with other people, getting the reaction, being able to have a conversation. And when it's virtually, it's harder to communicate with people, like, and definitely your film. It's a film to you kind of take it in, and then you need to talk about it, right? And I just felt like we're missing that at the moment, and hopefully we'll get back to that. But enough of that. That's I think it's important to mention it just because we're going through it.
Yeah.
And as filmmakers, we need to talk through it.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Sort of like get our emotions wrapped around it. But let's backtrack. Let's talk about a little bit about making the films and the actors we have today. BJ couldn't make it. She feels very bad. She's feeling under the weather. So Kyle is going to kind of take this part of it. But let's talk about the actors and let's welcome Kyle. Like I mentioned before, he's a Northern California Emmy Award winner. And just wanted to welcome him to the conversation. Welcome, Kyle.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Chris, how did you find your actors and how was your film casted? I remember when you said when Kyle was saying, "Hey, could I take off for this film I'm doing with Chris?" And I was like, "Absolutely." Yeah. So let's walk us through how you casted this, because Kyle's just. He's been getting into these films, and I was just like, "Oh, look at that."
Yeah, well, Kyle's a great actor in addition to being a really talented filmmaker. And Kyle was one of the first actors we cast. I don't know what year we brought you on, Kyle. Probably like 2016, maybe. Maybe around there.
2016 or 2017.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And so I think Constance was like that first piece, and then right around the same time we cast our lead Steve, and Kyle, I think right around the same time. And it was sort of like the process was always to bring in actors that are more experienced, like Constance, who would bring their talents and their experience, and then also go to Hawaii and then find people on the ground, and then make it a nice sort of combination of local talent and then talent from the continent as well. And so Kyle was one of the first actors that we casted, and I believe I found you through our casting director, Akemi. And I think it was like the first time we auditioned him. We were like, this guy's so talented, it's crazy. Let's just cast him. I don't know. What was the experience like on your end, Kyle?
So before that, I acted in a previous feature film called Go for Broke, and then Kemi was the casting director on that as well. And I feel like getting casted into these feature films kind of not necessarily like dropped into my lap, but for Go for Broke, I knew Alex, who was the director, and then through that he was just like, oh, we're doing this Japanese American thing. So that's how I met Akemi. And then when I got cast after that whole process, Akemi hit me up again after, as she does for all of her actors, and she's she says, "Oh, I have this other like really interesting, cool film for you." So I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? You know, like let's see where it goes." And I read a little bit. I don't know if I read the script at that time actually, but I remember meeting with Chris and Akemi at a park next to a big tree, kind of like in the film, and he kind of like created that atmosphere of what the film might kind of feel like at that time. And I've never been to that park before. And you know, I just sat with him and we had a little chat. Actually, yeah, we did a scene. I remember. I acted across a couple different potential actresses too, and that was really interesting.
Yeah, well, you're leaving out one important detail about Go for Broke. I mean, you play like one of the most famous Japanese Americans of all time, right?
Yeah,
Daniel Inouye. So
yeah, yeah.
and you were really good in that film too. So
Thank you.
so no, that's awesome. But the rest of the cast, how do you go about it? Because Steve is the lead character in it, and I thought he was fantastic. Like, how did you find Steve?
Like again, we were just street casting, and we knew that we were going to street cast a bunch of actors. It's what I had done for shorts. It's what I had done in August at Akiko's, and so it just, you know, people can just bring their spirit and their energy and add to the film in a really cool way. And so we were at a bone dance, I think in Nu'uanu maybe, and we just saw Steve dancing in the middle of the bone dance. It's like this, bone dances are like Japanese festivals where it's like kind of like a fair, like there's food, dancing. So anyways, we're just there just to look at people, you know, look at faces. And we saw his face and we just loved it. And, you know, we're like all three of us, Sarah, our producer, me, and Akemi, were all like, who's that guy? Like that guy has an energy. That guy has like a real cinematic face. And so Akemi and Sarah went up to him, like said, like, would you ever act in, like, have you ever thought about acting in a movie? And he was like, I think his first words were like, I've always, like, my dream is to act in a movie or something, which is hilarious. And so we auditioned him, and of course, him being the lead, you know, we auditioned him quite a bit. Like we, you know, with Kyle, we were kind of like, let's cast Kyle, like pretty much after that first time we met him. But with Steve, because he was the lead and because he was going to be in almost every scene, basically. And, you know, being someone who's older, we wanted to make sure that he had the, you know, shooting a film is so hard. It's tiring. It seems easy and fun, but it's actually really exhausting. So we wanted to know whether or not he had the sort of mental and physical resilience to concentrate and to make it through an entire feature film shoot. So we brought him back a lot, did a lot of different exercises with him just to see how he dealt with having a camera on him, for example, because people are different once you turn on a camera, right? People just change their energy. Having like, we did this thing where like we like had him like memorize a monologue. I just pulled a monologue from some Kurosawa film or something. I was like, okay, memorize this, and then you have to recite this on camera the next time we meet. And he memorized it, and then like I did this thing where I just like distracting him nonstop. Like I had people like yelling at him and just seeing if he could like just like be in character and like concentrate on the lines and recite the lines on camera where like someone's like yelling at him, like there's like all this stuff going around the background because that's a film shoot. That's a film shoot. Like you're supposed to be in the moment, and yet there's like chaos constantly. And he did it, and I was like, wow, like I don't even know if I could do that. You know, like I think most trained actors I think would have a hard time with what we threw at him. But he was amazing, and of course he just had the right spirit and the right energy and just the right sort of like passion to commit himself to something like this, and he really did, and I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, he does a great job. And for people who are watching, Steve is the older version of Kyle's character. I don't know if I'm giving anything away because it's you know, so you know, I don't know if you were trying to match them up in any way with one another, you know, in terms of.
I mean, we definitely thought about that. I remember Akemi at one point just sending me, like, I guess she had gotten a bunch of younger photos of Steve, and she just like sent me like Steve, Kyle. She's like, wow, like because they really did look alike in this really interesting way. So yeah, we kept that in mind. Like obviously they need to be believable, but you know, but it's also a movie, so like, you know, you do have a little bit of leeway when you're like playing with things. But yeah, it was a consideration.
Yeah, I'm off track a little bit, but this reminds me that I feel like, we're like two films in a row, two feature films in a row, going to Sundance back to back from Hawaii, which is amazing. But in both films, it's non-actors, for some of the parts, like this is almost like a trend. Kyle obviously had some acting behind him, but a lot of the actors are yeah, but a lot of the actors that are having success, at Sundance are like the ones that are not properly trained. They're just kind of diving into it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? I mean, I didn't think about that until now we're talking about it. Like we're not we
Yeah.
got these undiscovered talents.
Yeah, I mean, undiscovered probably is the word. Like, I think there's just a lot of talent and a lot of people who are just good at being on camera, good at being themselves, and have great energies that are different. Because the sort of traditional acting style is a very specific kind of craft and kind of energy and kind of storytelling. And sometimes you want something different. You want people who are a little rough around the edges and not trained, and that's actually where the magic is. The magic is in them just bringing this energy and this spirit to the film. And then when you're talking about a place like Hawaii, which which for the most part, a lot of the representation has been through via Hollywood, and that Hollywood has a very specific kind of storytelling, and so you want to bring stuff that just has that that texture that feels real or feels different or like something you've never seen before. And I think non-professional actors or like just beginning actors or untrained actors like do bring that sort of like that nice like little texture or wrinkle that gives it, I think, it gives it that feeling of being really from a place, really born out of the place um, as opposed to stuff that maybe has come before it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that's a great answer, and I think the other part of it as a filmmaker is it's allowing filmmakers to not have excuses, and you can just sort of that's Alika's story, which we'll get to probably on another show, of just going out there and making something, and not waiting for anyone. But your films always feel like you're transporting the audience into the movie. The camera lingers. It's not cutty. The sound design is natural. The performances don't feel like they're acting, like we mentioned. It all feels like we're there with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we achieve that? How do you come up with that? Like, is there, the timing and the pacing seems to be a big deal when it comes with your films. Like, how did that formula kind of come into your life?
Yeah, I don't, it's a very intuitive thing. I don't necessarily know if there's I don't know if there's necessarily that much premeditation. I think when I'm shooting, like the thing that I'm also always looking for is like, does this feel honest, or does it feel, is the emotion communicating? And I think that with this film and probably with the last feature, August at Akiko's, I think there just was something that I was just drawn to, a sort of slower lyrical pace, capturing sort of this different, Kanoa's character in the films is like time moves differently out here, capturing this sort of country, sort of slower pace vibe. I think just would add to the emotionality of the film. And so it's like, it's kind of more intuitive. And I think, but definitely the idea of transporting someone or an audience member to the islands is very important. I think sound plays a really big part in that, really immersing them, really taking advantage of like the beauty of the sort of landscape, the amazing locations, and making Hawaii a character, I think was one of the goals for sure.
So to kind of the actors, what's it like being an actor on this set? Because it's different, right? With that being kind of the mindset of the film, we're not trying to be action. We're not trying to be like super loud or anything. What's it like? What's the vibe as an actor on set?
So the set was set all the way out in the North Shore. And out there things are kind of quiet. Like in the country. Like even in my hometown, it's a little bit quiet. Um, I think something that Chris does really well is helps to cater to the actors or the characters in the sense that, you know, for people who weren't as experienced as in acting, just being on the set really felt peaceful. And, you know, I found myself kind of being meditative and introspective in my own way, um, being on that set. Like sometimes if you know, we're in between takes or I'm waiting for my scene, I'll go and like sit by the river that's like right next to the set, and you know, start just looking and just sitting there and just being with nature. Um, I feel like all of Chris's sets probably feel like this, because it really speaks to how his films come out and are produced in the end. So I just felt very at peace at that time.
And it comes across, right? It feels like everyone's at peace. Watching the film for myself, I feel like it's a bit of a meditation. I feel like I'm thinking about a lot of things at the same time as we're going through it, and I'm thinking about my own life. So that's what I felt watching it, and I think it comes across in the acting as well. But you know, what was it like working with Chris, and what's his process like?
Working with Chris, he allows the actors to be themselves with little tweaks here and there. He'll say like, maybe try this, try, and it's just very small things. It's like try doing it this way, or try that way. And you know, honestly, for the most part, he allows us to be the characters, to encompass them as they are, and kind of accepts that into the film.
Yeah, and why is it important to tell these stories? It has a big topic, a big theme. It's very personal to Chris. It's diverse and it's told in a place that people don't really see. Well, they may see it a lot, but it's very Hollywood, like Chris was mentioning. So why is it important that we tell these stories?
I think it allows people to feel place a little bit more, to feel the essence of a place and the people that live there. And I think the story can be universal in a lot of ways. For my character specifically, I felt like I was kind of going through a coming of age at a very young age, and it's almost like, you know, I went through the whole arc of like loss of innocence or loss of a loved one, or like coming to terms with that, which I thought was really interesting because I was the young version, right? But yeah, I felt it was just a very, very beautiful film.
Awesome. And that's a good place to sort of ask this, which is, how's the reaction been? It's been a little tough because we talked about it's been a virtual world, so you haven't had a lot of in-screen. I think HIF, Hawaii International Film Festival, was kind of the first one. It was kind of like a homecoming after a year. Like, how's the experience been? What's the reaction been like?
On my end, like you said, it is tough to sort of gauge. You don't get that sort of audience interaction where people would be coming up to you after screening and like kind of just telling you their ideas about what they got out of the movie. That homecoming screening at the Hawaii International Film Festival was a big one. It was the first time I think a bunch of the crew, like, because a lot of the crew was Hawaii based, got to see the movie in the theater. I think a lot of them got to attend Sundance, virtually, but then to be together and to have like a communal experience is really beautiful. And then we opened theatrically, and we were in Hawaii, and I would do Q&As after as many screenings as I could. In LA, same thing, trying to do Q&As, and those Q&As are so invigorating because it's just people sort of the film kind of provides a space, like you said, Gerard, that for people to sort of like look inward in a way and like sort of bring themselves to the movie and be in dialogue with the movie. sort of meet the movie halfway in the theater. And so you know, at the end of the movie, people would just be sharing sharing like like all their stories and what they were thinking, and it became like not so much like a Q&A and just more like talking story, and like people were just like this is what I got out of it, like it reminded me of this, like, and it's just so beautiful, man. Like I couldn't believe it. Like I left those screens just feeling so like emotionally fulfilled, and I was like, man, this film's cool. Like this film just like allows people a space in which to dialogue in this way. And so I hope the film can continue to do that virtually. You know, the theatrical our theatrical is winding down and we're transitioning onto online, so going back to the online. But you know, I hope that people can continue to have conversations around the movie. I don't know what Kyle has. What have people talked to you about the film at all? I'm curious if what you've heard.
I mean, you know, the general consensus is it was very meditative, and they loved the film. They, you know, they feel that it is a film where you can look introspectively at yourself, and it was very different than what they're used to. Um, a lot more, you know, thought provoking. Because I mean, you kind of have to figure out the pieces of the film and kind of put them together to understand it. So I think that's the general consensus that I got.
And that's exactly why I wanted to put this show together. So we keep talking about the film, you know, and
Yeah,
introduce the film to new audiences. The chapter is in a bunch of places other than Hawaii. Hawaii is actually a small market for us. So we want to get it beyond, you know, for people to kind of connect with this film. And you sort of paved the way for Hawaii filmmakers at Sundance in a way, because I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first feature film from Hawaii to get to Sundance, you know, like our Hawaii community. There might be some that had to drop or something like that, but you have the roots. And I felt like this was the first one. I don't know if we can confirm that, or, you know, but what's the Hawaii film community like? You know, can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't know either. There was a film about 25 years ago called The Picture Bride, made by a director, Kyle Hata, who's an amazing director. I don't think she's from Hawaii, but she definitely has roots. Like her family's from Hawaii, and she like came to Hawaii and told like a pretty beautiful sort of Japanese American plantation story that I think is just like a really amazing movie. It played Sundance, it played Cannes. It was like distributed by Miramax. So that I feel like that one is yeah, that one is one that I think about a lot as like paved way. But yeah, the community, I mean, when I think of community of filmmakers at home, I just think it's like of this generosity. And every, you know, it's a community in which there's a ton of talent, and a lot of people have like very diverse voices. People are doing their own thing in a way that's very cool and put together. It's like it kind of creates this sort of beautiful round sort of depiction of the islands. Everybody kind of being honest to themselves, and I love that. And then on top of that, everyone's helping each other out. Like that's what I think of, is like it's like, you know, it's not like a cutthroat kind of like super ultra competitive thing. Like it's really like everyone just kind of you know, rising tides raise all boats kind of thing. Like I will help out whoever needs help, and if I can help, you know, and I know that I can rely on um, my friends and my colleagues to do the same. You know, it's a really really cool cool community. Yeah, I don't know, Kyle. What do you? I would love to hear what you think too.
Well, I've been going to Ohina Film Festival. Gerard runs that, and I've also been going to HIF. And my favorite part about those festivals are seeing the Made in Hawaii festivals. I mean, I went to school for film at the Academy for Creative Media at UH Manoa, and that's where I first learned about making films. And they're all student films in the beginning. They're a little rough around the edges, and I think Hawaii was at that stage maybe like 5 years ago still. But I start seeing films like Malkatu Makai from Alika, and I start seeing um, just almost like a a reinvigoration of Hawaii storytelling. And that really inspires me, and that makes me really happy because I feel like I'm seeing more of myself in those films, seeing how I grew up in these places. And I'm just glad that these stories are finally being told and getting out there into the world.
Yeah,
Well
I mean,
said.
I just want to add like the Simple Man playing at Sundance, Alika's film, Everyday and Kamuki playing at Sundance. It's like the culmination of a lot of work within the community that's been decades. Um, Kyle mentioned the Academy for Creative Media at UH. I went to that school as well. Made my first filmmaker friends in the community there. And the people have been making work at home for a long, long time and building community. Gerard, you've been doing a lot of that work as well. Your film, I remember, was pretty big in terms of like bringing the community together and being like a first real sort of like community, like let's make something with and shooting it and all that. I like, and so like there's just like been a lot of there's been a lot of effort and a lot of energy and spirit put into it. And it's right. Like now you go to HIF and I just went out at HIF. I was watching the opening night shorts and it's like, what the hell? Like this stuff is so good. It's crazy. And so it's a very exciting time. But again, it's like the blossoming of like roots planted, seeds planted 20 years ago or whatever, it's crazy. And it's beautiful when you think about it that way. It's like giving me chicken skin just talking about it,
Yeah, no, I mean, quite honestly, I think Chris, I met you in LA, with Anne, and it was like funny how all these building blocks, all the seeds kind of like are all blooming now. Kyle was my student at ACM, Erin Lau was my student, and she just won. She's got this grant with Netflix and Tribeca, and I guess she's got funding like $125,000 to make her short film. So, it's all happening. And it's just awesome to see your success. And it's true to everyone that's watching in Hawaii. We're all about building the community. We are so stoked, and you'll see it in our Facebook and our feeds of how everyone gets so excited when something great happens to their friend and their colleagues. And when Chris got into Sundance, everyone was rallying behind him and was so excited to see Chris get that. Not only get that, but get recognized, for all his humble work over the years of just kind of grinding away and telling his very unique vision. And I applaud you, for that. And I mean it. I felt the film was one of the best. And it may have been overlooked when it comes to awards, but fantastic film.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm proud of all the short films that were at opening night. That Kyle also edited one of them. So again,
Last Hawaiian Sugar.
Yeah. So I'm sure there'll be another episode down the road. But what's next? What's next for all of you?
For the film, so it's available right now on VOD. You can rent it on like Apple TV and Amazon and all of those places where you can rent digital screeners. So please check it out there. But the streaming premiere is going to be on the Criterion channel, which is going to be, I believe, in March. So it'll be on Criterion for everyone who has a subscription to that to watch the movie. Please go check it out. They're going to do a cool little program where they're going to have my first film, August Akiko's playing, and a bunch of my shorts as well. And I'm really excited to just put a bunch of work up on Criterion and have people check it out. And yeah, so that's really the next step for our movie. It's pretty cool.
Well, that's very appropriate. I think that's the right place to put the film, to be quite honest. Criterion is, is kind of the label when it comes to art films and films of this nature. And hopefully it lives there a very long life. And I've said it to you, I feel like this is a film that will only get better over time. It may be a weird analogy, but I felt like it was very like being there. I don't know if you've seen that
Yeah,
film with Peter
absolutely.
Sellers.
Yeah.
But I know it's like a different theme and topic, but I felt that, which is like, it's a film that just gets better with time and age, and people will discover it, find it, stumble onto it. And, we just have to keep talking about it. Most definitely it will be in classes and talked about at ACM forever. You can guarantee that, right? We're going to be doing that. With that
That's
being
cool.
said, we do have some questions from the audience, and this is a good time to take some questions. It's been pretty lively, and thanks for everyone that's tuning in. From Missy, she said, is there any tips for applying and getting selected for Sundance and other film festivals?
Yeah, that's a really great question. The one thing I will say is that I think that, definitely focus on what it is that you're trying to do in film, and what you're trying to say, and creating from that space of real honesty and creativity, and really just having fun with it, because all that other stuff is kind of out of out of your control, like whether or not you get into a festival, whether or not you get into a lab, there's a lot of rejection. And to that point, I applied many times before getting invited to the lab with Simple Man. And I discovered later, at first I would get a rejection, and I would think, oh, they don't like my stuff, blah, blah, blah. This, what a bummer. I guess I'll move on. But I think if you continue just applying, what I realize is that they're paying attention. Like, festival programmers are paying attention. The people who run the Sundance lab are paying attention, and they're tracking you. And they're kind of just trying to figure out when is the best time to bring you on to help. And so it was, I think my third time that I applied to the Sundance lab that I was invited. And I wasn't even going to apply that time because I thought, they keep rejecting me. Why would I keep doing this? But it turns out that they were digging the stuff. They were just trying to wait for the right moment in which they could do they could be the most helpful for the project. So just keep going, like, be honest to yourself, and then just keep trying,
And that's very true. It's actually, this is going to be maybe in a diversion before I get to the next question that we got. We talk about this constantly, like with short films, what gets to film festivals, what's going to get you the laurel. And I feel like nowadays, if you're chasing the prestigious film festivals with a short film, it's much more about the style and voice as opposed to a complete story. Because now we're finding that there's films that have beginning, middle, and ends, and you'd be shocked of how those are kind of turnoffs to programmers. So now we're kind of going up against this, and this is going to be a discussion for some other thing, but it's just fascinating to see that, that with short film programmers, they're like, you know what, why does it have a story? I don't get that. And it's, to me, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
But
yeah, but the other thing is that that could also change. Like that could swing back the other way in a year or two. And so, like, if you're only just sort of trying to like copy, or you're trying to like just do what's trendy or do what you think people want, I think it takes so long to make a movie, but by the time you finish the movie, culture or the industry or things might have flipped and changed. And so none of that is really in your control. I think what's in your control is just trying to make something that you love and trying to make something that you think is beautiful. And then, then you'll see. Maybe it'll get in, maybe it won't. But I don't think there's any way to really predict, because things change so quickly.
That's the big point, which is forget about all that stuff. Just make the film you want to make it as best as you can, tell your story. I feel like every filmmaker we work with, that's what we ultimately come to, like, because we always say, like, keep it to 15 minutes or under, please don't go past that and all that. And 9 out of 10 times they're like, nah, I gotta just tell the story I want to make. And Destin Creighton said the same thing with Short Term 12, which was like, his short film was like 20 minutes, got rejected everywhere, but now he's super famous and doing Shang-Chi, because he said that very same thing. He was like, you got to make the film you want to make. you got to stay true to who you are as a filmmaker, and it doesn't matter if it's 20 minutes or whatever it is, right? You're telling your story and the one that you want to make. So I felt like that's the perfect advice.
100%.
Right. One last question, it looks like, because we're down, from Susan. Really fascinating conversation. When did Christopher first start making movies? I think maybe we started talking about this, but I think you go way back, right?
Yeah, I started making films when I was I got my first DV camera when I was in college, and I was like delivering pizzas and saved up all my tips and like got a camera, which was super expensive for me at the time. But I just started shooting everything. Like I started bringing my camera with me everywhere, shooting like skate videos, shooting parties, just shooting my friends hanging out, whatever. And then I would just kind of just teach myself editing by just bringing that footage into Premiere, and then I would just play around, put it to music, try cutting, and I really just learned how to shoot and edit by just doing it, just for fun. And it all kind of stemmed from this this wanting to have fun with it and just wanting to play. And so I was at the University of Hawaii at the time. I'm studying English. They started the film school, the Academy for Creative Media, while I was there. So I was very fortunate to then be able to take some actual film classes while I was at the University of Hawaii. And then I started making real, like, not real short films, but student films that were different than sort of the weird experimental stuff that I was making before that. But even when I make work now, and I, whether it's a short film, whether it's a feature film, I'm always trying to just like go back and like remember what it felt like to like make those first, like, just playing around with the camera movies, because it was so like just like fun and just low stakes and just doing whatever you liked, and like you didn't know really what you're doing, but who cares, like there's no rules. So like just reminding myself there's no rules, just have fun, and try to go back to that initial feeling of what it felt like to create and just have fun. And you're making stuff with your friends. That's the other thing. It's like filmmaking is so collaborative that you're usually just surrounding yourself with people you love, and you're just like, let's do something together. Let's make this cool thing. And then like you all go make this thing, and you're like, cool, we made this thing, like, and just like finding that vibe for every project. I think going back to those first films are always like what I'm trying to do before I start shooting.
That's a really good point. Making films with your friends is key, and that's how I start. I start in high school just making films with my friends, and I always say it a lot. I made like 20 or 30 really bad films before I got to one mediocre one. And that's what filmmaking is, right? So it's trial and error and figuring it out and all that, and that's what filmmaking is. Even with that question with like how do you get into film festivals, it's the same thing. And going to film festivals and seeing what is picked also helps to sort of kind of guide you, like maybe to what festivals to apply to, because each festival actually has a different flavor. The programmers kind of decide what gets into the film festival, and it's subjective. So if you look for a film festival that's hip, trendy, and you made a hip, trendy film, then maybe you should submit to that film festival. Sundance at the moment is actually embracing Indigenous voices and diversity. So if you make a film that's diverse and tells a story from an Indigenous culture, then Sundance is actually a really good option and a good choice at the moment. And as to Chris's point, may change, but at the moment they are a leader with Indigenous stories. Whereas, yes, I will say Tribeca is working on it. They're a little behind on that, but I feel like they're trying, and maybe we'll see that this year, where there's a little bit more of the Indigenous angle, and not so much like the kind of it's art film, but art film that we're used to seeing. So I think this is a kind of a good place to end. I don't know if you have any kind of last thoughts before we wrap it up.
Thank you for putting this together. This was really great to chat and see you both virtually. I like hanging out with you too, so it's nice to see your faces.
Yeah, I'll also say thanks for having this. I think this is the first time I got to see Gerard and Chris in a while, so it was fun just having a conversation, and it was almost like we were just talking story. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm honestly, wanted to catch up, see how things are going. So
Yeah.
but not only that, I think, it's great that the critics are finally recognizing the work, that you're getting kudos. And I saw a little bit of the frustration not getting awards or, anything that they, from like Gotham or anything like that. And I felt like it should have been in the conversation. I agree with you on that. So that's a little bit of why I want to keep talking about your film. And
thank you.
Want to keep doing what I can on my side, and NAS is happy to be a platform and a host for everyone. I will encourage everyone to tune in. We're going to have more of these. Maybe we'll follow up in the future as well. I think the next one we'll do with Mitchell Merrick. We'll do a screening of Kaleva and talk about that one. That'll probably be our next one. Mitchell's doing some great work as well.
That's a good one. That would be a good one.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in. That does it for us. I think this is a great time to wrap it up. Thanks for everyone that tuned in to listen in with Chris and Kyle on I Was a Simple Man. I implore everyone that is watching to please check the film out. Apple TV. I believe it's on Amazon. There's links in our email. Check out the film. Would love to talk to people about it. This is what Cinema Club's about. We want to create dialogue around these films and filmmakers. We'll be introducing a lot of them over this coming year, and it's excited to have this show and to have Steve behind the scenes totally rocking it. So thank you, everyone. Truly appreciate you all listening to our little new show, Cinema Vérité.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard. And thank you to the filmmakers who joined us today. We are excited to bring many more Cinema Club Vérité programs to our members soon. Please be sure to keep an eye on your email for alerts to upcoming screenings and programs. If you have not already done so, you have until March 31st to renew your membership. And as always, more information can be found on our website, mesf.tv. Thank you again for everyone who joined us today to be a part of today's program. We will see you at the next one.
That was cool.